Have you been experiencing an uneasy feeling about the modern church? Do you sense that there is something very wrong within the body of believers? Have you found yourself questioning the things that you've been taught about Scripture? Are you bothered by a nagging sense that much of what you were taught is lacking or worse, wrong? Do you feel lost? Are you looking for more? If you've been experiencing any of these feelings, you are among friends here. We felt the same way at one time. We can relate to the prophet Jeremiah when he wrote, "Our fathers have inherited nothing but lies, worthless things in which there is no profit." This is Jeremiah 16:19. We, too, felt lost until we started tearing down the teachings and traditions of man and started to study Scripture for ourselves. And in its original, ancient Near East, Torah-observant Hebrew context. When we started to study Scripture in its ancient context, our faith started to change. We came alive, and we found ourselves drawn back to the ancient paths. This is what Yahweh says: stand by the ways and seek and ask for ancient paths where the good way is, and walk in it. Then you will find a resting place for your souls. But they said, we will not walk in it. This is Jeremiah 6:16. The Scriptures call this ancient path the way. This show is dedicated to serving the kingdom of Yahweh by sharing what we have learned about the way with others. We are aware that there are many other voices out there making similar claims. We just feel that many of those voices are seeking something other than to serve the kingdom, and that they do nothing but cause more confusion as a result. We make no claim to special revelation or anointing. We just try to avoid adding to the confusion by focusing on the Father, His Son, and their kingdom. We are lay people, but we are not without the necessary skills to do proper research. We do believe that Torah still applies to the believer, but we are not part of the Hebrew Roots movement. In fact, most Hebrew Roots groups would reject us. This is because we recognize that Torah is more than just the law of Moses. We are under the new covenant, and with a change in the covenant, there was a change in the way Torah applies to the believers. Search the Scriptures and pray for the wisdom necessary to better understand how the covenant has changed and how these changes govern the way Torah is to be applied to the life of the believer. Then, we try to live, as best we can in our modern world, according to these changes described and lived out by the Messiah and his apostles. And in everything we do, we strive to serve the Father, His Son, and their kingdom by serving other believers and helping to make stronger disciples as we go. Good morning. Welcome to We Who Are Lost. Today is Wednesday, June 24th, 2026. I'm your host, Joe Bakanovic. Shortly here, we will be continuing in our study of Jeremiah. We're starting in chapter 43. We'll be wrapping up in another couple of weeks. Not a whole lot of Jeremiah left. And when we get done with that, I'll probably, while I'm figuring out which way to go next, I'll probably explain to you what I've been reading here. This is a biblical philosophy, a Hebraic approach to the Old and New Testaments by Drew Johnson. Before you go looking this one up and grabbing it and wanting to run out and read it, forewarned, this is heavy philosophy book. It's scripturist philosophy or philosophy within the scriptures and everything. It will send you to your dictionary. I don't mean that to sound condescending, like I think I'm better than you are. I'm just saying it will. Guaranteed. Running to your dictionary. And he uses a lot of terms and phraseology in here that's probably going to be very foreign to you. He is a philosopher talking to other philosophers, but he's dealing with the scriptures. I think I finally know how to put this into a formula that can be digested at the average layperson's kitchen table. And boy, does it make the scriptures come alive in even newer ways than it helped me organize what I've already been telling you, the spiritual logic, the fuzzy Hebraic way of thinking. I had seen it. He put a little sharper focus on the picture for me, and now I've taken what he started with and ran with it. And yeah, so I will explain that to you when we finish up with Jeremiah, and then we'll decide where to go from there. Wherever it is, I guarantee you it's going to be in the New Testament for a while, because that's where I'm starting to live. So We're in Jeremiah. We left off. We're in chapter 43. I am reading in the NASB 1995 translation of the scriptures. And there's not a whole lot going on in here that's going to need a lot of commentary, just some things I'll point out to you. Chapter 43, verse 1. But as soon as Jeremiah, whom Yahweh their Elohim had sent, had finished telling all the people all the words that Yahweh their Elohim, that is, all these words, Azariah, the son of Hoshiah, and Yanhan, and the son of Kareah, and all the arrogant men said to Jeremiah, "You are telling a lie. Yahweh our Elohim has not sent you to say, quote, you are not to enter Egypt to reside there. But Baruch, the son of Neriah, is inciting you against us to give us over to the hand of the Chaldeans, so they will put us to death or exile us to Babylon." If you'll remember, last week we left off the people that had come from the neighboring lands where they fled to escape the Babylonians. They came back and they asked Jeremiah to go inquire of Yahweh what they should do. And Yahweh told them, hey, stay in the land. Don't go to Egypt and you'll be okay. Well, they didn't want to listen. So Jeremiah told them, and now they're telling Jeremiah, you're a liar. Yahweh didn't say that. Well, at this point, you'd think these people have a little bit of sense because Jeremiah had been prophesying for several years that Babylon was going to destroy the northern kingdom. And lo and behold, that's what happened. I mean, not the northern kingdom, the southern kingdom, rather, excuse me, Judah. And that's what happened. And you still don't want to listen to Jeremiah. Okay, fine, whatever. Verse 4. So Yohanan, the son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the forces and all the people did not obey the voice of Yahweh to stay in the land of Judah. But Yohanan, the son of Kareah, and all the commanders of the forces took the entire remnant of Judah, who had returned from all the nations to which they had been driven away, in order to reside in the land of Judah, the men, the women, the children, the king's daughters, and every person that Nebuzaradan, the captain of the bodyguard, had left with Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, or Hakim, and the grandson of Shaphan, together with Jeremiah the prophet and Baruch the son of Neriah, and they entered the land of Egypt, for they did not obey the voice of Yahweh, and went in as far as Tapahanes, or whatever. I'm bad with these names, but so what happened is they decided to go to Egypt anyway, and they drugged Jeremiah and his scribe Baruch, and they brought the princesses, the daughters of the king. They dragged all these people with them to Egypt. Okay, verse 8. Then the word of Yahweh came to Jeremiah and Tapahanes, saying, take some large stones in your hands and hide them in the mortar in the brick, the terrace, which is at the entrance of Pharaoh's palace in Tapahanes, in the sight of some of the Jews. So do this where some of the Jews see it. And say to them, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, behold, I am going to send and get Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and I am going to set his throne right over these stones that I have hidden, and he will spread his canopy over them. Now, several things here to notice. He calls Nebuchadnezzar his servant. Well, Nebuchadnezzar is not a disciple or an obedient follower or believer of Yahweh, and yet Yahweh calls him my servant. Now, at this point, I want to make a quick little aside. So let me do this. If you read the scriptures with a Deuteronomy 32 worldview, that all of the nations have their own gods, their own spiritual overseer, governor, so to speak, and that these governors did not do their job. They became corrupted, spiritually corrupt. And instead of being a good steward of their charge, their nation, and teaching their nation to worship Yahweh, they teach the nation they were set over to worship them. They want the worship. So that's kind of how the Deuteronomy 32 worldview works. So all these gods have power only in their nations. They might be known throughout the region, but only in their nations are they thought to have power, authority. Notice how Yahweh has authority over any and every nation. Wherever he wants to, he institutes his will. Well, even in Israel, in this time here, you know, they've already entered the land. They've set up the kingdom of Israel and all this other stuff. They go worshiping the Baals, the false gods. Well, those gods they get Israel in trouble, but they don't have power over Israel. They can't make their will come to be. But Yahweh does. And he does it again in Babylon, and he works his will in Egypt and everywhere else he wants to go. And when he calls these non-believers his servants, just like he said the king of Assyria was going to be his servant, king of Babylon is his servant, he has called Pharaoh his servant. This is Romans 13 stuff, folks. You're going to get the leaders in the physical material world. You're going to get the leaders you deserve according to what Yahweh wants done. So he raises up leaders that do his bidding. Even if they're actually working for other gods, they're still doing Yahweh's bidding. That's making all things work together for the good of those who believe and trust in Yahweh. So this language here is all part of that, and it fits snugly within the Deuteronomy 32 worldview. Charlie, can you see what I'm explaining here? Does this make sense?
Yeah. This is, yeah, this is interesting too, because it's kind of funny that with him being taken with them and everything, and he's predicted all this stuff, and they're still not listening to him and just discarding him. But yeah, I mean, you see throughout the scriptures too, where Yahweh uses others, even on like Pharaoh in Egypt and
Cyrus
and so on, and over and over again. I mean, even in our day, some people think that Trump is a believer. He might be, I don't know, but regardless whether he is or not, Yahweh's still using him, I believe. To what outcome, well, that could be.
That's what we need to put. Yeah, that's where the fruit
that's
matters.
Another thing. Yeah. So
all right. I just wanted to see if others are seeing this. All right. It says, verse 11, he will also come and strike the land of Egypt. So the Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, is going to come strike the land of Egypt. Those who are meant for death will be given over to death, and those for captivity to captivity, and those for the sword to the sword. And I, meaning Yahweh, shall set fire to the temples of the gods of Egypt, and he will burn them and take them captive. So this is I, Yahweh, through the hands of Nebuchadnezzar. So Nebuchadnezzar is going to actually do the work, but Yahweh is claiming he's responsible for it. So he will wrap himself with the land of Egypt as a shepherd wraps himself with his garment, and he will depart from there safely. He will also shatter the obelisks, the Heliopolis, which is in the land of Egypt, and the temples of the gods of Egypt he will burn with fire. So Yahweh is saying he's going to do that, but Nebuchadnezzar is the tool or implement through which Yahweh is going to work, which makes Nebuchadnezzar his servant. Now into chapter 44. The word that came to Jeremiah for all the Jews living in the land of Egypt. Jews, not all Hebrews, the Hebrews that lived in the southern kingdom, the house of Judah. Those who are living in Migdal, Tahpanhes, Memphis, and the land of Pathros, saying, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, you yourselves have seen all the calamity that I have brought on Jerusalem and all the cities of Judah, and behold, this day they are in ruins, and no one lives in them, because of their wickedness which they committed, so as to provoke me to anger by continuing to burn sacrifices and to serve other gods whom they had not known, neither they, you, nor your fathers. Yet I sent you all my servants, the prophets, again and again, saying, oh, do not do this abominable thing which I hate. But they did not listen or incline their ears to turn from their wickedness, so as not to burn sacrifices to other gods. This is an accusation. This is legal language, folks. Yahweh is leveling a charge, a legal charge against them. Then he's going to read the sentence. He says, verse 6, therefore, my wrath and my anger were poured out and burned in the cities of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem. So they have become a ruin and a desolation as it is this day. So there's the judgment. Here's the accusation, what you did, the testimony against you. There's the sentence. Now then, thus says Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, why are you doing great harm to yourselves so as to cut off from you man and woman, child and infant from among Judah, leaving themselves without remnant, provoking me to anger with the works of your hands, burning sacrifices to other gods in the land of Egypt, where you are entering to reside, so that you might be cut off and become a curse and a reproach among all the nations of the earth? Have you forgotten the wickedness of your fathers, the wickedness of the kings of Judah, the wickedness of their wives, your own wickedness, and the wickedness of your wives, which they committed in the land of Judah and in the streets of Jerusalem? So now he's charging the remnant that's going into Egypt against his word through Jeremiah. He says, why are you repeating this mistake? Why are you still continuing not to obey me? So he reads the verdict. But they have not become contrite even to this day, nor have they feared nor walked in my law or my statutes, which I have set before you and before your fathers. There's the charge against them. There's the evidence against them. It says, therefore, thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, behold, I am going to set my face against you for woe, even to cut off all of Judah. Cut off means to kill, folks. Cut you off from the kingdom, from the congregation, from the body. You're going to die physically in this case, not just spiritually. Verse 12, and I will take away the remnant of Judah who have set their mind on entering the land of Egypt to reside there, and they will all meet their end in the land of Egypt. They will fall by the sword and meet their end by famine. Both small and great will die by the sword and famine, and they will become a curse and an object of horror, and an imprecation and a reproach. And I will punish those who live in the land of Egypt as I have punished Jerusalem with the sword, with famine, and with pestilence. In other words, you're not going to escape. You should have listened to Jeremiah. So there will be no refugees or survivors for the remnant of Judah who have entered the land of Egypt to reside there and then to return to the land of Judah, to which they are longing to return and live, for none will return except a few refugees. Okay, now this language seems to be universal. It says none will be allowed. It's going to cut off everybody except a few refugees. This is that ancient Near Eastern that's the Middle Eastern today. To this day, this is the hyperbole. Just because it says all doesn't necessarily mean 100%, folks. It's a way of stressing how many are going to die. Now, these refugees, we already know from this previous part of the story who it's going to be. At least Jeremiah, Baruch, and the princesses and a few people with them. May not be many more than that. But the remnant who thought that they would preserve themselves in Egypt and then come back to live in Judah, Yahweh's saying, because you would not listen to me, you're going to die in Egypt. He continues in verse 15. Then all the men who were aware that their wives were burning sacrifices to other gods, along with all the women who were standing by as a large assembly, including all the people who were living in Pathros in the land of Egypt, responded to Jeremiah saying, quote, as for the message that you have spoken to us in the name of Yahweh, we are not going to listen to you. So when you reject his prophet, you reject Yahweh. All right. Here's an aside. I don't know how to do this one. I should have asked Charlie and gotten him prepped for this, but all the wives are burning sacrifices to other gods, all the women. If you read your scriptures closely, there is a charge leveled against women in that they have a tendency to lead their husbands astray. Now, they are not necessarily the ones condemned for this. It's the husband that's condemned because the husband has leadership. So do not think that I'm trying to make a chauvinistic or patriarchal comment here. What I'm talking about is the natural order in Yahweh's world. Men and women have been made differently. We're different physically, we're different emotionally, we're different psychologically. Women have an effect on their men, the men closest to them. It's several fold. There's the physical attraction. The man will be, it's like Bill Cosby said before he turned into some sort of monster when he was still funny. He's talking about Adam and Eve in the garden. Eve says, "Here, eat this fig," and Adam's like, "Yeah, whatever, eat this fig, and here, eat this." Adam eats it all up, and he's just eating whatever he's handed so that he can get to the fruit he wants to eat. Eve. Well, men have that problem. It will pretty much do whatever the woman wants so that we can get what we want. But they also have this desire to have peace in the house. So men, you have this tendency to ignore the things you should do so that you don't create a conflict with your wife. And this is part of the curse that was leveled in Genesis. The woman is always going to want for her husband, but she's always going to be at odds with him. This is part of our world. And this is part and parcel to why the scriptures tell women to live in harmony with their husbands, to be not subservient, but to understand that he is been charged with leadership position in the marriage over you. So you have to learn to accept his judgments. That does not mean that he gets to dictate. Your helpmate. The woman is not beneath you. She's not behind you. She stands opposite you. She's supposed to be part of your decisions, husbands. But this is something here in the scriptures that modern day Christians want to ignore because of our cultural influences and political correctness and feminism and everything. And it is a problem because I'm starting to understand that Yahweh teaches us what works and what doesn't work in his Torah. And we're supposed to learn from that, from the stories. This is how it works best. This is how it doesn't work. So when these passages single out women, the ultimate target here is the husband. Don't miss that. Don't miss that, guys. Ladies, hear me. The ultimate target is the man. It's just that the vehicle through which the corruption comes is the woman, because the man is susceptible to her influences, both because of physical attraction and because he wants peace in his home. And it has dire consequences. So this is calling men not to ever compromise on what you're supposed to be doing. Just like Yahweh's people in general, male and female, are not supposed to compromise on what he says is right and wrong for the good of society. Men are not supposed to compromise so that the good of the household, the true good, the higher good, is maintained. It's all how we fit together within the greater kingdom. So verse 17, they just said, we're not going to listen, but rather we will certainly carry out every word that has proceeded from our mouths, by burning the sacrifices to the Queen of Heaven and pouring out drink offerings to her, just as we ourselves, our forefathers, our kings, and our princes did in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem. For then we had plenty of food, and we were well off and saw no misfortune. So they're going to continue to worship the Queen of Heaven because they think that she took care of them. They're giving credit for Yahweh's provision because of his long-suffering anger with them and his impatience with them. They're going to credit the Queen of Heaven for what Yahweh did. Now, the Queen of Heaven, folks, that's if you do the work and you trace this back, you're going to run into Ishtar and her son Tammuz. And this is why a lot of people think that the Trinity is pagan, because it's imitating Ishtar and Tammuz and the father, the husband or consort of Ishtar. There are several of them there, depending on what part of the Middle East and the Babylonian area you're in. There's several different names, but they're all mirror images of the same deity, same unclean spiritual beings. But that's what's going on here. And we've already seen in other places where these women are offering raisin cakes and things like that to the Queen of Heaven. If you're Catholic, that's Mary. No joke. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The Madonna with the baby fig, that's Ishtar and Tammuz. It's syncretism. It's pagan practices that have crept into the true faith to corrupt it. It's heretical. You shouldn't be doing that. So anyway, that's where this comes from, and it's right here in your Bible. But you have to know the background, and you got to go looking for that. That background's not in your scriptures. You got to go dig that up. So they're giving credit to the Queen of Heaven for things that Yahweh did for them. Verse 18. But since we stopped burning sacrifices to the Queen of Heaven and pouring out our drink offerings to her, we have lacked everything and have met our end by the sword and famine. And, said the women, when we were burning sacrifices to the Queen of Heaven and we were pouring out drink offerings to her, was it without our husbands that we made for her sacrificial cakes in her image and poured out drink offerings to her? So they're saying, weren't our husbands part of this? They're defending themselves. Say, why are you accusing us, the women, Jeremiah? Our husbands were involved in this. So, like I said, women, ladies, this is ultimately focused on the men in the house that did not correct this apostasy. So just make sure you're aware of that there, believers. It's not that one is better than the other or meant to lord over the other. It's that we were each made to fulfill certain roles in society. And when we fulfill them, society functions better. And when we don't, society does not function as well. And a dysfunctional society brings discredit and dishonor to Yahweh, especially if that society claims to belong to him. And a properly functioning society brings glory to Yahweh. Verse 20. Then Jeremiah said to all the people, to the men and the women, even to all the people who were giving him such an answer, saying, as for the smoking sacrifices that you burned in the cities of Judah and the streets of Jerusalem, you and your forefathers, your kings and your princes and the people of the land, did not Yahweh remember them, and did not all this come into his mind? So Yahweh was no longer able to endure it because of the evil of your deeds, because of the abominations which you have committed. Thus your land has become a ruin and an object of horror and a curse without an inhabitant, as it is this day. Now we know that there are still some people left in Judah. So when it says without an inhabitant, it doesn't mean totally uninhabited. It means desolate. There are not a lot of people left there, like a wasteland where people wandering through it. Because you have burned sacrifices and have sinned against Yahweh and not obeyed the voice of Yahweh, or walked in his law, his statutes, or his testimonies, therefore this calamity has befallen you, as it has this day. So Jeremiah is correcting him. It's not because you quit worshiping this false god. It's because you ignored Yahweh. And then Jeremiah said to all the people, including all the women, now this is the scriptures focusing on the women, hear the word of Yahweh, all Judah who are in the land of Egypt. Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, as follows. As for you and your wives, see, now it's focusing on the men, you have spoken with your mouths and fulfilled it with your hands, saying, we will certainly perform our vows that we have vowed, to burn sacrifices to the Queen of Heaven and pour out drink offerings to her. Go ahead and confirm your vows and certainly perform your vows. So Jeremiah is like, okay, go ahead. Do what you said you're going to do. Nevertheless, hear the word of Yahweh, all Judah who are living in the land of Egypt. Behold, I have sworn by my great name, my Shem, says Yahweh, never shall my name be invoked again by the mouth of any man of Judah in all the land of Egypt, saying, as Yahweh Elohim lives. So in other words, he's going to reject them. I don't want you claiming me. He says, behold, I am watching over them for harm and not for good. And all the men of Judah who are in the land of Egypt will meet their end by the sword and by famine until they are completely gone. Those who escape the sword will return out of the land of Egypt to the land of Judah in few number. So there will be a few refugees that come back to Judah. Not a lot. Then all the remnant of Judah who have gone to the land of Egypt to reside there will know whose word will stand, mine or theirs. So in other words, whose word actually comes to fruition, Yahweh's or the people's or their false gods? Verse 29, this will be the sign to you, declares Yahweh, that I am going to punish you in this place, so that you may know that my words will surely stand against you for harm. Your destruction is going to be a sign. Thus says Yahweh, behold, I am going to give over Pharaoh, Hophra, king of Egypt, to the hand of his enemies. So he's going to give the king of the Pharaoh over to Nebuchadnezzar, to the hand of those who seek his life, just as I gave over Zedekiah, king of Judah, to the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, who was his enemy and was seeking his life. So he's going to give Pharaoh over to those who were after him in his life, who want to destroy Pharaoh. All right, at this point, we'll go ahead and we'll take our bottom of the hour break. We'll come back. We'll continue in chapter 45. 3 minutes. We'll see you then. I like that song. All right. We're still back in 45 now, chapter 45. It's a basically one paragraph chapter. It says, this is the message which Jeremiah the prophet spoke to Baruch, the son of Neriah, when he had written down these words in a book at Jeremiah's dictation, in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Hosea, king of Judah, saying, thus says Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, to you, O Baruch. You said, ah, woe is me, for Yahweh has added sorrow to my pain. I am weary with my groaning and have found no rest. Thus you are to say to him, thus says Yahweh, behold, what I have built I am about to tear down, and what I have planted I am about to uproot, that is, the whole land. But you, excuse me, but you, are you seeking great things for yourself? Excuse me. Allergies are kicking my little booty today. Yahweh asked Baruch, but you, are you seeking great things for yourself? Do not seek them. For behold, I am going to bring disaster on all flesh, declares Yahweh, but I will give your life to you as booty in all the places where you may go. So this is a message from Yahweh through Jeremiah to the scribe Baruch, saying, hey, I'm going to preserve your life, but that's all you're going to get. You're going to be as a man who is saved through flame. I'm going to burn up everything but your life. And the thing that I get a kick out of here is, if you've been following us on our Friday series, it says, behold, what I have built, that's Israel, I am about to tear down. So he's going to tear down the southern kingdom, Judah. He's already torn down the northern kingdom. And what I have planted, I'm about to uproot. That is the whole land. So he's going to uproot everything. If you're following us in our book study on the scepter and the birthright, what you're going to be aware of now is that when Judah returns from Babylon, the kingship that is set up is no longer of the royal line. That has been transferred to somewhere else in the world, to another land. We have been taught our whole lives to focus just on the Jews. That's Israel. The Jews are Israel. Israel's the Jews. No. This is the reason we're studying the book of Jeremiah. And this separation of the house of Israel and the house of Judah carries over into Ezekiel. And that's crucial. And it carries over to Hosea and to Amos. It's in all the prophets. The prophets understand the two houses, which just yesterday was prophesied by Jacob. I have become two camps. My people have become two nations, essentially, two witnesses. When you understand that Judah, Jews, southern kingdom, Israel, we don't know what they're called, where they are anymore, northern kingdom. Folks, this is even showing up in our world today. Just yesterday, I was having a conversation with our middle son, and he says, like, Tucker's saying that the Jews in Israel right now is the prophecy. It'll be said that, you are not my children, but you are my children. And everybody argues that these Jews are not real Jews. They don't understand that scripture. They don't swallow scripture whole. They don't bother to even study scripture. So how could they understand this? The Jews who are not real Jews, that doesn't mean that their bloodline isn't Jewish. It means they pretend to be Jews, but they're not. The Pharisees were Jews who were not Jews. The Pharisees were certainly from the tribes of Jacob, flesh, blood, but they were pretenders. They were children of Satan, not of Yahweh. So they're pretending to be Jews on the outside, but they're devils on the inside. They're whitewashed sepulchres, tombs. That's what it means to be a Jew who's not a Jew. You're pretending to be of the southern kingdom faith, but you're not. That's very clear in the scriptures when you read this. It's not that, well, the Ashkenazis aren't Jews. Folks, if you convert to Judaism, you're a Jew. If you convert into the kingdom of Yahweh, you are no longer a Gentile. You are now of the house of Israel. You're an Israelite. Understand the relationship. Jeremiah made it very clear. All Jews are Israelites, but not all Israelites are Jews. And King David was promised that the kingdom would be rejoined and he would have somebody on the throne of that reunited kingdom until the Messiah returned the second time and the throne was given to him to whom it rightly belonged. So where is that kingdom today? That kingdom was promised its own land, not in the Holy Land. So how are we going to move Yahweh's people from the Holy Land now to this new land that they were promised if we do not uproot them? Tear down the nation, uproot what had been planted, and move it. And we've already seen in Jeremiah that he's going to do this 3 times, overturn. That right here is being told to Baruch. Baruch's going to be part of this. And the only thing he's going to get out of it is humble servitude and his life. Now, Joe, you're reading things that aren't in there. You will not see it if all you're looking at is this one paragraph. No, you won't. You will see it if you step back and look at the mosaic. And that is what this has been teaching me. This book on Hebrew philosophy, it teaches through the mosaic, what he calls pixelated picture, what I call the jigsaw puzzle. It's all different metaphors for the same abstract concept. The picture cannot be seen until you step back away from it and look at the little pieces of all the different historic stories of Yahweh's people. The picture is painted by their history, which is why Yahweh constantly says, remember, remember, remember. Because if you forget, you lose a piece of that puzzle. And if you lose too many pieces of the puzzle, you can't see the picture. This is why Jeremiah is crucial to us in our study on the birthright and the scepter. All right, last chapter for today, Jeremiah 46. This is a huge prophecy over Pharaoh. Chapter 46, verse 1. That which came as the word of Yahweh to Jeremiah the prophet concerning the nations, Gentiles, to Egypt concerning the army of Pharaoh Necho, king of Egypt, which was by the Euphrates River at Carchemish. So they're invading Assyria in the northern parts of the Babylonian Empire, which Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, defeated in the 4th year of Joachim, the son of Hosea, king of Judah. Line up the shield and buckler and draw near for battle. So get yourself in battle array. Harness the horses and mount the steeds, and take your stand with helmets on, polish the spears, put on the scale armor. Get ready for battle. All right. Why have I seen it? They are terrified. They are drawing back, and their mighty men are defeated and have taken refuge in flight without facing back. Terror is on every side, declares Yahweh. So Egypt's army is fleeing in fear. Let not the swift man flee, nor the mighty man escape. In the north, besides the river Euphrates, they have stumbled and fallen. So Egypt is defeated. Who is this that rises like the Nile, like the rivers whose waters surge about? Egypt rises like the Nile. Pride right there, folks. Even like the rivers whose waters surge about. And he has said, I will rise and cover that land, and I will surely destroy the city and its inhabitants. So Pharaoh boasts about what he's going to do. Go up, you horses, and drive madly, you chariots, that the mighty men may march forward. Ethiopia and Put that handle the shield, and Lydians that handle and bend the bow. For the day belongs to Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, and day of vengeance, so as to avenge himself on his foes. So in this case, his foe is Pharaoh, and he is using Nebuchadnezzar and the forces of Babylon to punish Pharaoh. But notice how this, for the day belongs to Yahweh, the day of Yahweh. This is part of that phrase. The day of Yahweh is any day in which Yahweh acts. That belongs to him. And it doesn't have to be a 24-hour period. This was not a 24-hour period. Very few military battles are over in 24 hours. There's always a cleanup at the very least, a consolidation and a mopping up. What it means is the period, the yom, that period or day, so to speak, figuratively, belongs to Yahweh, Elohim of hosts. So he's taking credit for what's going on. And the sword will devour and be satiated, and drink its full of their blood. And for there will be a slaughter for Yahweh, Elohim of hosts, in the land of the north by the river Euphrates. Go up to Gilead and obtain balm. Gilead was, in the past we've covered this, was famous for this medicinal healing balm. O virgin daughter of Egypt, in vain have you multiplied remedies. There is no healing for you. The nations have heard of your shame, and the earth is full of your cry of distress. For one warrior has stumbled over another, and both of them have fallen down together. So the whole world knows about Egypt's defeat, the whole ancient Near East. This is the message which Yahweh spoke to Jeremiah the prophet about the coming of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, to smite the land of Egypt. So now, after defeating the Egyptian army in the land of Assyria by the Euphrates, now he's going to invade Egypt. Declare in Egypt and proclaim in Migdol. Proclaim also in Memphis and Taphanes, and say, take your stand and get yourself ready, for the sword has devoured those around you. Why have your mighty ones become prostrate? In other words, bowing down. They do not stand because Yahweh has thrust them down. So it wasn't Nebuchadnezzar, it was Yahweh who did this through Nebuchadnezzar. They have repeatedly stumbled. Indeed, they have fallen one against another. Then they said, get up and let us go back to our own people and our own native land, away from the sword of the oppressor. So in other words, there is a remnant of the Egyptian army that fled and went back to Egypt, and Nebuchadnezzar followed. Like I said, no military conquest is one-day battle. Very seldom. They cried there, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is but a big noise. He has let the appointed time pass by. As I live, declares the king, whose name is Yahweh of hosts, surely one shall come who looms up like Tabor among the mountains, or like Carmel by the sea. Folks, this right here is how the Hebrews do philosophy. You'd have to know Tabor among the mountains. What's that mean? And you have to know what Carmel by the sea. Now, I'm pretty sure these are places geographical, but they're connected to, like Carmel by the Sea is probably a very well-known, prosperous trading port or something. All right. So come in power or might or fame or renown or something like that. You have to know the story behind these things to get the full picture of the logic that's being conveyed here. It says, make your baggage ready for exile, O daughter dwelling in Egypt. For Memphis will become a desolation. It will even be burned down, and hereafter of its inhabitants. Egypt is a pretty heifer, but a horsefly is coming from the north. It is coming. Also, her mercenaries in her midst are like fattened calves, for even they too have turned back and have fled away together. They did not stand their ground, so the hired soldiers fled as well. For the day of their calamity has come upon them, the time of their punishment. It's not a single day necessarily, seldom is. Its sound moves along like a serpent, for they move on like an army and come to her as woodcutters with an axe. They have cut down her forests, declares Yahweh. Surely it will no more be found, even though they are now more numerous than locusts and are without number. Okay, cut down their forests. This is a prophetic utterance here. Yes, I have no doubt that it pertains to trees. But notice what the next line, Hebrew parallelism, even though they are now more numerous than locusts and are without number. They, the forests? Egypt doesn't have that many forests, folks. But tall trees are often indicative of mighty men. Not just kings, but also kings and prophets and priests and men of renown, of fame and fortune and might and power and authority. So this is very likely using the language of a siege army, which will cut down the forests to help with siege equipment, like ramps and battering rams and things like that, and to burn and everything else. But I think this is a double entendre here. It physically cut down the forests, spiritually, prophetically, cut down the great people of Egypt. It fits with what we're seeing here, with what we're reading. So I'm pretty sure that that's how we should properly understand that. The daughter of Egypt has been put to shame, given over to the power of the people of the north. Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, says, behold, I am going to punish Ammon of Thebes and Pharaoh and Egypt, along with her gods and her kings, and even Pharaoh and those who trust in him. I shall give them over to the power of those who are seeking their lives, even into the land of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and into the hands of his officers. Afterwards, however, it will be inhabited as in the days of old, declares Yahweh. So Egypt is going to be decimated, but it will regain its strength. It'll come back. But as for you, O Jacob, 12 tribes, the whole descendant of Jacob, my servant, do not fear, nor be dismayed, O Israel. This is all the people who wrestle with Yahweh, not just the Jews, not the southern. This is everybody. There's that parallelism. Jacob is Israel. So we're talking about all of Israel, the whole of Israel. And that'll also give you a timeline. That's not right now. As this is being written, that can't be now. The northern kingdom is dispersed in the nations. The southern kingdom is in Babylon and being destroyed in Egypt. So that's not all of Jacob. This is a forward prophecy. 4, see, I am going to save you from afar and your descendants from the land of their captivity. And Jacob will return and be undisturbed and secure with no one making him tremble. This is not the return from Babylon. This is not the return from Babylon. This is not the return in 1948. That was the house of Judah. O Jacob, my servant, do not fear, declares Yahweh, for I am with you. For I will make a full end of all the nations where I have driven you. Yet I will not make a full end of you, but I will correct you properly and by no means leave you unpunished. A full end of all the nations, folks. That is the book of Revelation when it says there is no more time. Time is no more. There's no more time. All is done. And the nations have become the kingdom of Yahweh. There are no more nations. This has got to be end times prophecy because of the concepts that are being prophesied here. And we can look at history. We can match this up to history. This hasn't happened yet. The nations, the Gentiles still exist. The nations still exist. They have not all been punished. Yahweh's people have still been driven into these other nations. They're still there. The house of Israel has not returned home. And I don't know that it will entirely, because the promise made to David was his descendants would have their own land elsewhere, not in the Holy Land, somewhere else, and they would never be uprooted from there. What it means, I don't know. But gather the pieces of the puzzle and don't try to make them fit into a preconceived idea of what they have to mean. Just keep the pieces and keep sliding them around until they start clicking into place. Comments, Charlie? You got anything to add to our discussion?
This is just, it's interesting to see prophecy in action here, because you see where the prophecies of Jeremiah, you can see some of their at least partial fulfillment as he goes along, and some of it may even be prophecies that are yet to be fulfilled even for us. But it's interesting to see how this works and how Yahweh uses, others that aren't even, believers and stuff to bring to pass his judgments and so on and so forth. It shows how miraculous and how powerful he is and the way he does things. And he does all this without trampling on our individual wills either. That's the amazing thing here is, he knows the nature of people, and he, I guess, uses that to accomplish his purposes, but he doesn't, manipulate it in any way, other than he does try to get us to bow our knee to him. But,
notice how he says that everybody that went into Egypt is going to be destroyed. Well, Jeremiah went, but he didn't go willingly. But he says that there will be a small group of people who will return to Judah. I bet you those were the ones that went into Egypt against their will. They were drugged, captives, but their heart was faithful. This is a real world historic example of, does not Yahweh know how to preserve his children wherever they may be, to lock them behind their door and cover it with his hand and preserve them through the storm? That's what he did. He preserved Jeremiah, Baruch, the princesses, and probably a small faithful remnant that was unwillingly drugged into Egypt. Got to come back. He knows your heart. He will preserve those who remain loyal and faithful.
Yeah.
Okie dokie.
He'll do the same thing for us as we long, if we are true to Yahweh and doing everything we can to try to, further his kingdom.
All right. Tomorrow we're going to be in Islam's prophecies. They're, in a lot of ways, if you take what I call the Tim LaHaye left behind, there's going to be a rapture and then 7 years of whatever, tribulation, halfway through peace and all this other good stuff. If you take that idea of prophecy, Islam's prophecy are the mirror image. What the Tim LaHaye thing calls good, Islam calls bad, and vice versa. They're photo negatives of each other. I know a lot of people will say, well, that proves that Tim LaHaye is correct. No, he's not. No, he's not. That comes from Lacanza, a man named Lacanza. That's where that started. And we know that. But that came from the enemy as well. So the adversary gave you both sides of this story. That way, no matter which side you cling to, you've been deceived. So it doesn't matter. He wins in both cases. So we'll cover Islam tomorrow and their prophetic stories and how they match up to the way I understand the Bible. And we'll also address how Islam fits the fourth beast of Daniel much better than Rome. Much better than Rome. Doesn't mean it is, but I think it is. I believe it is, but we'll get into that. And then Friday, we're still in our study on the scepter and the birthright, and we're starting to trace the overturning and where it went and how things in history have fulfilled the prophecies in Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Hosea and Amos and some of the other prophets. So that's what we're going to be doing for the rest of this week. We thank you for being here. We appreciate your time. We hope that we are blessing you and benefiting you to the extent that we enrich your spiritual life and encourage you to dig into your scriptures, and to the extent that we get Yahweh's story correct and his prophecies correct. Hallelujah. Praise Yahweh. Glory be to him in the Son. To the extent we mess it up, that's all my fault. It's on me alone. I'm the one running his mouth. I pray that I don't make mistakes. If you think I have, please email us. Show us in the scriptures. Here's where I think he's messed up. Let us examine it. And if we have, we will change I'll change in a heartbeat. And I'll announce it from the mountaintops. And thank you for it. I don't want to be in error, and I don't want to teach in error. But if you think what we're doing is profitable for others, worthwhile, hit the like button, share the show. If this is the first time, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell, because I keep warning you, there's going to be some extra content coming. I know there will be some next week for sure. We got a few more coming. Charlie's starting to get on me. He's reminding me I've promised a few other shows. I got to wrap up some things. Got to get that done. So do that. And if you are not already following the Road to Concord and We Who Are Lost blog pages, you might want to do that, especially the Road to Concord.com. All one word, theroadtoconcord.com. That's the blog page. It's kind of simple looking. It's meant to be simple. It's not meant to be a complicated, hard to read page. I keep it that way on purpose. It's intentional. You want to be there in case something happens. That way we can always contact you, or you can know what's going on, because that is my domain.